Good morning. My name is Wendy, and I'll be your conference operator. At this time, I would like to welcome everyone to the How to Increase Operations Efficiency and Workplace Productivity Without Compromising Safety conference call. All lines have been placed on a listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct an interactive question-and-answer session. If you would like to ask a question during that time, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. You will hear a tone acknowledging your request and a prompt to record your name. If you would like to withdraw your question, please press star, then the number 2. I would now like to turn the conference over to Guillaume Pasquet, Director of Benefits for Spain and Portugal. Sir, you may begin the conference.
Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Guillaume Pasquet, soy el director de Benefits para España y Portugal. Antes de empezar con la presentación de ISOMS, voy a aprovechar para fijar un poco algunas ideas respecto a lo que es Benefits, porque todavía a lo mejor en el mercado hispano Benefits no es del todo conocido. A modo de resumen, Benefits es el nombre de la división de software de ABB. Y hoy en día la oferta de Benefits cubre un conjunto de soluciones para el sector utilities, nuclear, industrial, construcción, soluciones software del tipo de gestión de activos, de mantenimientos, de gestión del trabajo de los operarios, gestión operacional de las plantas, que es lo que vamos a ver hoy, y también herramientas más analíticas a nivel energética. Como acabo de comentar, hoy nos vamos a centrar sobre nuestra herramienta de gestión de operaciones en entorno de plantas, que se llama ISOMS. Esta solución aplica tanto para plantas nucleares, refinerías de gas, centrales eléctricas, entornos industriales en general, constructoras, por ejemplo, proyectos de construcción, y también toda la industria del papel. ¿Vale? Antes os he explicado un poquito el modo de hacer preguntas al final de la presentación. Si os interesa, también podéis chatear directamente con nosotros a través de unas ventanas a lo cual tenéis acceso en la sesión. Sin más, voy a dejar la palabra a mi colega Scott Ewine, que se va a focalizar de nuevo sobre nuestra solución de gestión de operaciones en plantas que se llama ISOMS. Scott, it's your turn now. Thanks.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. I'm going to take you through the presentation today. What is ISOMS and what are the challenges facing operations today? Here's a list of what we've seen people encountering, and the key here to remember is that ISOMS is for operations, for people that are actually operating the plant. That's what the software was written for, and those are the people whose problems we're trying to solve. So ISOMS interfaces a little bit with maintenance, a little bit with engineering, who look at some of the data, but for the most part, the software is used by operations. So you see here some of the issues that people have come up with: limited access to information, inconsistency of information, poor communications, lack of integration, and dealing with high employee turnover as the older generation start to retire and new people replace them. And what ISOMS is going to do is enhance efficiency, reduce the amount of time you spend doing administrative things at your site, handling paperwork and so forth. It's going to improve access to information and sharing of critical information, and reduce the amount of paperwork that you have to handle over the course of the day. ESOMS has been around for quite some time. The people, including myself, that developed it all have a background working at power plants in operations, So we've been there, and we know what's going on. It was designed with a lot of customer feedback over the last 20 years. So we know what problems they've had along the way, and we've helped them solve that. It's been in use, throughout the nuclear industry is where we started in the United States. We branched out into fossil and hydro plants, and into other industries such as chemical, oil, and gas. But it is a very mature product that's been around for quite some time. It is modular. You don't have to buy all the modules. You can pick and choose which ones work for you and roll out additional ones if that makes sense. And it is an updated state-of-the-art solution. It currently is up to date with the most recent versions of Oracle and Microsoft SQL Server. It's a .NET application, a thin client application that does not use any client software. It runs strictly within the browser. And the main areas we address: efficiency, safety, and compliance. So here's some of the customers that we have using the software, some of the names that you'll see that have been using the software. You see a lot of power companies, a little bit of governments, but mainly power and some chemical, oil, and gas. And we have completely, we support complete localization and internationalization. ESOMS currently runs in French, at EDF, in China, at CNMC, in Chinese. So everything can be completely localized to Spanish or Portuguese as needed. But just to give you an idea of what the gap is that ESOMS is trying to fill, as you see, we have, this is kind of a full picture of what the type of data that you have at a power plant. You have engineering information. On the left-hand side, you have maintenance information, which could be our asset suite application, or SAP, or Maximo. You have supply chain and accounting information down here. And what ESOMS does is it fills in the gap over here with operations information. So our modules interact with these other applications, and they become within your enterprise. And really, the next couple slides explain really what we're trying to do here, and that is oftentimes we see our customers, potential customers, what they have is a combination of a lot of different processes within operations. They might be taking their log sheets on paper and clipboards. They might be in the control room taking narrative logs in paper log books. They might have put together some Excel spreadsheets that they use to track data. Maybe they have some homegrown access databases. But the problem with that is it's very tough to maintain that, and there's very little chance for sharing information. So if somebody is taking data on a clipboard, on a piece of paper, and that piece of paper goes into a log or a folder somewhere, it's very difficult for the engineers to get access to that. And very difficult for the maintenance people to trend things and so forth. So what ESOMS does is it takes all that and puts it into one application, which is ESOMS, and we use handhelds to gather information out in the field, and then that information can be used and integrated with all these other applications. So we can take data, gather in a handheld, and we can send it to a historian such as PI or PhD so that they can see the information. We can receive and send data back and forth to your DCS system. We can take all the data on the handheld that's gathered, and we can send it off to a document management system automatically, so you don't have to shuffle any more paper. The data goes directly from the handheld to your document management system without ever having to print anything out. We can do integration with your asset management system, so we can know the status of work orders. We can automatically create work orders from the field in any EAM system that you have. And we can integrate with work scheduling applications such as Primavera. So we can integrate our lockout tagout system with Primavera so that we know when the tags and locks are supposed to be in place. So we have one centralized system that talks to everything and is consolidated in one area where people can see operations data enterprise-wide. So what we're going to talk about now is the different modules that we have within ESOMs, and we will talk to what we have is our core solution here, and I'll talk about those first, these that are in the beige, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the what we call point solutions. So ESOMs is based on a mobile platform, which is Windows Mobile. We do not care about what type of handheld you use. It just has to support Windows Mobile. So Motorola, HP, Intermec, and so forth make handhelds. It really just depends on what peripherals you want. So and what requirements you have for safety. So and environments. Some are more rugged than others. Some have barcode scanners. Some don't. Some have cameras. Some don't. Some are intrinsically safe if you're going into environments that could be hazardous. So you can buy anything from a fairly inexpensive pocket-sized handheld to the larger ones with the pistol grips and so forth. It just depends on what you want. But ESOMs is premised on having some sort of mobile device that you're going to use out in the field. And that is part of the core. The other part is generally you start out with an equipment database, a list of all the equipment you have out in the field. Usually ESOMs is the equipment database of record. Normally we would be interfacing with your existing equipment information, which might come from something like Asset Suite or SAP or Maximo or some homegrown system. So we want to start out with and try to keep synchronized with a list of equipment so that we're talking, about the same thing. We're using the same plant label data in ESOMs that we are in other applications. So we allow you to synchronize that list with an ESOM, so we use that. That's kind of the starting point because all the other modules interface with the equipment information. For example, the narrative logs module, which is our control room narrative logs application, allows us to identify equipment statuses and so forth. So this is the narrative logs module is replacing your logbooks, your paper logbooks, and journals in the control room. So that's one of the most basic applications, one of the easiest to install, and the one that most of our customers use right off the bat. Then the Notice of Change module allows us to notify people in the enterprise that about critical things that have changed. So if we've got a change to a set point somewhere, change to a process, that allows us to specify who needs to be notified of that and send it out and record their acknowledgement of it. Faces with third-party applications such as your historian. Then the other module that we have here, the point solutions, configuration control. This is doing our equipment lineups, so going out in the field and making sure that everything is configured correctly before we start the plant up. Being able to do equipment lineups for switching train from train A to train B. Anything that deals with verifying the configuration of equipment out in the field. The lockout tagout or clearance module is doing our red tags or danger tags, taking the equipment out of service and placing the tags on it so that maintenance can work on it safely. That is standard in the U.S. nuclear field is our lockout tagout system. It's used very widely across the U.S. nuclear industry. Also, EDF in China use that in their nuclear power plants. Operator rounds is taking data out in the field, instead of using the clipboard, doing it on the handheld. So this does require the mobile portion. And basically, it can be quite as simple as replacing, your paper log sheets with a handheld, but the handheld can do a lot more. It can do all kinds of calculations out in the field, and also we can integrate with barcodes to use barcodes to confirm that people were out in the field in the correct place, and also allow them to easily take the readings. They can scan a barcode and we'll tell them all the different places in the field, in their location where readings are supposed to be taken. Personal qualifications, this is making sure that all the people are qualified. It's similar to a learning management system or a training management system. Normally we use this just to make sure that before a person goes out to do something, that not only do they have the security within our system, but the qualifications are up to date. And this applies mainly to nuclear, especially in the U.S., because in order to hold a certain position, you might have to have maybe 5, maybe 10 different qualifications. You have to have an eyeglass exam, a respirator fit test, a physical. All that stuff has to be valid before you can take most positions. So we allow you to track that so that before the person logs in and starts doing their job, we know that they're qualified. If even one of those qualifications lapses, it can mean a huge fine for the company that allowed that to happen. The LCO tracking is regulatory compliance and scheduling. This is another one that's mainly nuclear, but it does have uses in environmental compliance and so forth. So this is making sure that if some piece of key equipment that keeps us in compliance with some regulation, if this goes out of service, that we take the correct actions to compensate for that. So we can make sure that within 3 days we have the equipment back in service and so forth. So this does sets a lot of alarms for us and clocks to make sure that we are compliant with our regulations. So having said that, we'll look at these in a little bit more detail. The first module that we are looking at, that we talked about, is the equipment module. And the key here is that we want to have consistent asset identification across all the modules. And we are going to maintain the status of plant equipment. So, for example, in SAT, they know the valve number, what they would call the functional location. They know the location of the equipment. They know who manufactured the valve and so forth. But ESONS is going to know operations type information. For example, is the valve open? Is it closed? Who's the last person that went out and statused that valve? So we are going to know the operations type information about the equipment. Is there a tag on it? If so, what's the position and so forth? What this does is it provides a single source for obtaining the status of equipment out in the field. And this integrates, as you can see, with all the other modules. So configuration control will update the equipment status when we do a valve lineup. The clearance or lockout tagout module, replace a tag, it's going to go into the history of that. And also we're going to integrate with whatever work and asset management software you have. So we're going to allow you to see the status of that in your work management system. That does require some integration, but we've done that with all the major systems. And also on the reverse, when we look at equipment information in ESONS, we'll be able to see if there's any work orders pending on it and so forth. Next module, operate around. This is our data acquisition and storage application. It's a very flexible way to collect all types of data that's out there. And generally, depending on the age of your plant, it depends on how much this gets used. If you have a fairly new plant that has a lot of instrumentation out in the field, you might use less of this. But if you have an older plant that's more manual, has less instrumentation, people still want to go out and take readings remotely and be able to review them and trend them over time. But even if you do have a very highly automated plant with a lot of instrumentation, people still want to go out and have a human being look at things once a shift and gather the data, so that they can compare it to what the instrumentation is saying. So if you have a tank farm and those have level indicators on them that come in continuously, you can still have an operator go out and check those levels manually, and then we can compare those values, make sure that something is not out of calibration or there's some instrumentation that needs to be fixed. We can also go out and gather information that is used by other departments. So for example, while the operators are walking around checking things, we can have them check to make sure fire extinguishers are okay. They can go out and check the levels of important temperatures and nitrogen pressures and temperatures, so that we can see if a level of something drops below a certain point, we can tell the storeroom that we need to order more of it. So it's a very strong application that's been around for a long time. We have a lot of different departments that use it in that, like chemistry departments see the value in it because they take a lot of readings. And we even have security departments that use it. They walk around with a handheld and scan security doors and gates, things like that, as part of their rounds that they do on a routine basis. So we can gather data with it. We can track make sure that people were where they said they needed to be, because part of what we do with the security department is make sure we have to prove to the regulators that the security guards were out there taking their rounds routinely, and it can be used for that. We can also track deficiencies out in the field. So if the operator is walking around doing his duties, he sees a valve leaking, he can take a picture of it with the handheld, and when he uploads it, that can be the starting point to create his work order. So he can record where the deficiency is, take a picture, and then that becomes the starting point for his work order. Word of law, this is the control room journal or logbook. This is mainly done on the desktop. So instead of typing things in or writing things in a journal, he's going to type them in on the desktop. And the big thing that this helps with is access to data. So if you have a site with multiple control rooms, you don't have to call around to see what the status is. You can just look in the application and see plant-wide what's going on in each particular location or control room. This one integrates with a lot of other modules. So for example, if the operator finds something abnormal in the field and uploads, we can automatically have narrative log entries made so they can see in near real time abnormalities that are found out in the field. So this one is a very nice central location for people to get all the operations-related data entered in one place. And this is another one that, besides operations, a lot of other departments end up using. So the utilities people, the chemistry people, security people will all be making entries into the same module. They'll each have their own separate logs that they'll maintain, but it allows us to it allows enterprise-wide people to see all the data in one location rather than having paper scattered throughout the plant. The clearance module, and you probably have your own terminology for this. There's a lot of different terms that are used, but lockout, tagout, clearance module, red tag is another one that is used. This is for doing our lockout, tagout planning and execution. This one has been in use throughout the nuclear industry. Every ship in the U.S. Navy uses it for lockout, tagauts. We've been doing it for a long time, and we've really streamlined it, in particular for fast outages. As you probably know, in the nuclear world, time is money when it comes to doing a refueling outage, and all of the world's fastest refueling outages have been done with our software. And the main reason for that is because we were the first people that really did tag sharing. So if you have a bunch of different jobs that are all working in the same area, we can manage it so that you hang fewer tags, you share the tags that are out there, and you just have less administrative burden because you have fewer times that you're going out hanging and removing tags. So we've really got this one streamlined, and we handle everything from the printing of the tags to trolling people that are protected by the tags, the workers, the individual workers themselves. We maintain a list and allow them to automate or to sign on as being protected by the lockout tagout using barcode, so they can scan their badge, scan the work order, and it will sign them on and protect them so that the power cannot be turned on while they're working in a particular area. And of course, this one integrates with the work management system because we need to know the list of work orders that we are creating the clearances for, and it also updates the equipment status, so forth, and it can make native log entries automatically as well. The next module is configuration control, and this is the system checklists and valve lineups. So this is also can be done on a mobile device, but oftentimes is done on paper. People will print out the list, go out manually, perform them in the field, and then come back and say, okay, yes, I validated that all these things are in the right position. This is used quite often for plant startups. So at the end of an outage or a turnaround, you have to confirm that all the equipment has been put back in the right position, and the configuration control module is what you use to do that. The nice thing about having an integrated system is that at the end of the outage, if you've done all your clearances within ESOM, then the configuration control module will know that history, and it'll tell you all the positions that you should expect the equipment to be in. So all you would have to handle is what's out of position. So instead of having to go out and check something that was checked just a day or two ago when an operator removed a tag, you can take credit for that, is the term we use, so that you have to do just a smaller list of the things that you really need to check because we know that they're out of position. So this is another way that we optimize and shorten the outages at some of our larger customers. LCO track, making sure that we are, if we have anything that we've signed up to comply with, safety systems, environmental regulations, monitoring emissions, and so forth, that if something goes abnormal, for example, if we do a lockout tagout and to do work on a safety-related piece of equipment, it'll warn us and say, this equipment has to be returned to service within 72 hours or else we have to shut the plant down. Or if, say, we have some emissions monitor that goes with a service, it'll tell us you either have to post a watch to make sure that we don't have too much opacity coming out of the stack, or we have to shut the plant down within a certain amount of time. So a lot of this deals with monitoring the equipment that's taken out of service, either by a lockout tagout or if something is found abnormal in the operator rounds or narrative logs, telling us automatically what actions we should take or we may have to take in order to remedy the situation, so we don't have things that are out of service longer than allowed by our regulations. Personal qualifications and scheduling. This does both the qualifications, checking to make sure people are qualified, and it can also do shift staff scheduling. So we can put together our list of people that we need to have on shift over the course of the next week. It can handle, making sure we have a full complement each shift, so we have people in every position. It can handle scheduling of time off and so forth, so we can make sure that our schedule looks good in the future. And it also handles the qualifications, checking to make sure that people are qualified right now, but will be qualified in the future. It does do some stuff with the fatigue rules, which are basically right now mainly used in the U.S. The U.S. nuclear industry has some fairly specific fatigue rules that we've implemented. And that's one of the reasons that it's being used throughout the nuclear industry in the U.S. is because these rules are very difficult to calculate without having a pretty good application that can go through and do all these. So in the past, there were very simple rules, probably similar to the ones you had. You can't work more than 72 hours in a week, or you can't work more than 16 hours straight. But now they've added some rules that are more difficult to calculate, and they take place over 6-week periods and averages and so forth. So our software has been set up to enforce those rules as well. So this is one of the lesser common used modules that we have, because it's not strictly operations. It's kind of operations and scheduling and so forth. So this one is not used as much as the other ones. Then the mobile complement that we have for all the different applications, like I said, it's Windows Mobile. It runs in the small handhelds. It does not have to be wireless in that you can either use wireless if you have it. If you don't have it, you can use cradles. So you come back before you leave. You have the handheld charging in the cradle. It gets all the most recent data. Then you go out and you take the data, come back, put it in the cradle, and it synchronizes. Or you can use a combination of the two. So if it's in the cradle, you can synchronize using the cradle. If you're out in the field and you come across a wireless hotspot, you can synchronize it there. But it does, we always assume that we have limited connectivity just because we're in these industrial areas, with a lot of steel and stuff, so we don't expect you to ever have full-time wireless connectivity. The barcodes, or the handhelds that we run with, you can get all kinds of peripherals for. So, for example, you can use barcodes, either 1D or 2D barcode. You can use the RFID chips to locate equipment. And then also they have all kinds of Bluetooth-enabled or USB-connected peripherals. Oftentimes people, if they're taking furnace tube temperatures, you can hook up a pyrometer, which looks like a little gun, and you can take the temperatures just by pointing and retrieving the data. People hook up vibration equipment to measure vibrations, and you can even get little chemistry water sample cups that will measure like pH and acidity and so forth. Some water samples that can all be done with these hardware peripherals that attached to the handheld. So it just depends on who's using it and what you need to gather the information. We also, if you have a camera on the handheld, we use that, so you can take a picture out in the field, and it can be available on the desktop. So there's quite a bit of functionality we can get on the handheld. Another nice thing is that operators sometimes complain that they have enough they have to carry around already. They have a flashlight, a phone, a radio, and now they want to give them a handheld. Well, the nice thing is that many of these vendors, such as Motorola, now have integrated mobile devices that have a radio, phone, and they're a handheld. So we can consolidate and give the operator just one piece of equipment that they can use out in the field. And if it does have a phone in it, then we can use a cellular connection. The notice of change module, this is another one that's not used as much in the nuclear field. It's used more in the chemical, oil, and gas field because the plants are more dynamic and there's more changes going on with set points and things. This is often called also the required reading module, and this is listing different things that we have to be aware of before we take our shift. So if the set point is changed, if there's something with the equipment that's out of service, we need to have people made aware of. We can create a tracking record for that, assign it to all the people that need to know, and then send that out for people to review and acknowledge. So this is a very simple module. But the key is that it's very good at alerting people before they do their job that they have to acknowledge it, and we record it electronically, record your acknowledgement. So this module and all the modules in ESOMs do qualify, at least in the United States, for electronic signatures. And so depending on what the status is of the laws there, that may or may not be a benefit to you. I know we've done this in, for example, Russia and China, and they still do not have the legal, I guess, they haven't dealt with it enough to be able to say or to feel that they can qualify for electronic signatures. But in the United States, everything you do in ESOMs, even in the Navy, Department of Defense, and so forth, everything we do qualifies for electronic signatures, so you never have to use a piece of paper. It can go right from the handheld, right from the desktop, to a PDF in your electronic records management system without ever having to sign a piece of paper. And the NOC module is one of those modules that drives that. Interfaces that we've done, ESOMs can run completely by itself, but wherever possible, we like to integrate with other systems. So, for example, data warehousing, which is your data historian, we interface using the OTC standard. And so we've interfaced with Aspen, Honeywell, and OSI, and PI. With document control, we've interfaced with Documentum and other document control systems that, we just generate a PDF and an XML file to tell you what's in that. That's very simple. Work in asset management systems such as Ventex, IBM's Maximo, and SAP. And then we've integrated with project management software such as Primavera. And some of those are off the shelf, such as our integration with historians, work management systems such as Ventex and SAP, and project management such as Primavera. Those are off the shelf. You just configure them and they work. If you have something, homegrown systems and so forth, we can generally interface with them as well, but that would be done, basically with a time and materials type contract with the additional price to get integrated with something that's not, part of the standard we've integrated with before. So the key with ESOMs is that all the modules are integrated between themselves right out of the box. So you can see that we have integration here between all these other all the modules within ESOMs talk to each other automatically. So, that's one of the benefits as opposed to having systems from other vendors doing lockout tagouts and narrative logs mounted around. If you get ours, they're all automatically integrated very tightly. Here's our conclusion slide. I think I've demonstrated or discussed all the key points here. So with that, we'll put on the questions tab here, and I guess we can open it up for questions.
At this time, I'd like to remind everyone, if you would like to ask a question, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. Again, that is star and then the number 1. You will hear a tone acknowledging your request and a prompt to record your name. We'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. There are no questions. Thank you at this time. And there are no audio questions. Thank you at this time.
Muy bien, pues muchas gracias a todos por la participación en el evento. Muchas gracias a Scott. De nuevo, estamos a vuestra disposición si necesitáis más informaciones funcional, técnica o económica respecto a este tipo de solución que ya se está utilizando mucho en el entorno nuclear, en el entorno industrial y también en el entorno refinerio. Muchas gracias, hasta luego.